Hey everyone, it's Ed with Slow Car Fix, and today I'm going to be working on my 64 Corvair Monza to fix something that's been bothering me since I got it on the road. So a few years ago, this car was unearthed from a storage container, a sea can as we call them. It had been in there for, I don't know, like 30 years or something like that. There's a whole bunch of videos on it from when after I got it. Friends of mine pulled it out of the storage container, and then I bought it cheap, and it was pretty much just a shell with not really any value other than it's a solid car, but everything was apart, the interior was destroyed. I've gone through and liberated my parts collection. I've had a lot of these cars, and did a top end rebuild on it, on the engine, new interior, all new suspension, new brakes, new exhaust, new everything. A lot of good stuff to make this car what I want it to be. And it's always had one problem, and I think that's probably why it was parked. So it was painted once in the, I think in the 70s or something like that. It's a pretty solid car. It's got one little patch in the floor, but it's still intact and good. Yeah, it was parked since 1982 was when it was last registered. I've had it on the road for a year or so. I've been limping it along. It's got a bad transmission. I've yet to have seen a Power Glide that's gone bad, but this one is really bad. It's not just flaring like they usually do. It actually shudders, and it's rather violent. And then after the winter, I wanted to turn it around. It had sit on this lift all winter. And after the winter, it would barely pull itself up on the lift. It was a real mess. So anyways, I have a good used transmission from a friend's car that I'm going to try and put in it because new transmissions are expensive. The Corvair Ranch does sell rebuilt transmissions, and that will be my go-to if this one doesn't work out. I still have another few odds and ends that I'm going to do on this car that are not related to this, but I do want to maybe do like a wipe-on clear that you see people do on patina stuff. The interior's nice, but I haven't finished this package shelf. I have a package shelf thing for it with the carpet. It actually has, it's a 64, but it has 63 interior because I got that from a friend of mine that pulled it out of his convertible, and it's quite a nice interior. I just had to get the back seat recovered. Everything's good. Like, it's got the NOS pulled out of my basement, one-piece floor mat, Clark's Aqua carpet. Like I said, the whole front end's been, the cross member's been out. Front end's been, everything's been done. Everything's been done. The suspension's all powder coated, and like it's got a lot of fancy stuff. Okay, so there's a few things that I like about this car. Now, as I mentioned, I have other Corvairs, and I've had lots. I like an early coupe. I really like an early coupe. They're solid. They're structurally solid. With the window frames, there's like little to no wind noise. I find them to be quite a comfortable car. In my opinion, 64 is the best of them because they've got the transverse leaf spring, and then you get the benefit of the later model engine. There's a lot of good things about an early coupe, early Corvair coupe. So for those of you that don't know Corvairs, two generations of Corvairs, earlys and lates we call them, or first and second gen. 60 to 64 is looks like this one. 65 to 69 looks like that one on the lift. That's a 66, and there's a 65 sedan beside it. They made wagons, they made trucks, they made all kinds of things. So this car, I was just getting near finishing it, final details, when I was in an accident with my 62 wagon and was T-boned. So actually some of the wagon parts have lived on through this car, which worked out well. But the transmission, it's not good. So I'm going to pull that out. Let me show you some of the other little tricks I did to this car before I go and pull it all apart. Okay, so there's nothing new here other than, you know, just the usual Corvair stuff. It's got Crane XR700 electronic ignition, which I really like. I did the internally regulated alternator upgrade. This is a 95 horse engine. That was the original engine, but it's got 110 heads on it, which there's a reason for that, and that combination seems to work really well. What else? Rebuilt carbs. Those are the carbs for my wagon. I'm still running the mechanical pump. I usually run an electric pump, but for some reason I'm running a mechanical on this one. It seems to be cool. It's a 327 gear power glide car, so it's a really nice cruiser. So I'm looking forward to getting it back rolling here because it's just a nice car to drive. So I've done detailed videos before on removing and reinstalling Corvair powertrains in a bunch of different cars. So I'm not going to get too in depth in detail of step-by-step. Right here is a step-by-step in detail hour and a half video or whatever of removing the engine from my Corsa. This is not entirely the same, but there's a lot of similarities. It's still a Corvair engine coming out of a Corvair. Earlies are quite a bit different. You don't remove the half shafts, the axles slide out. This one has a transverse leaf spring, a lot of things like that. I like to do things in systems. I like to do everything on the top and then do everything on the bottom and do it systematically. So the first thing I'm going to do is disconnect the battery. And I've got a table set up with my tools on it, a light, some music, coffee, and I'm going to disconnect everything on the top side of the engine first. Anything electrical that connects the engine to the car, I'll disconnect. I will remove the accelerator shaft that goes down to the transmission. I will undo all the parts where the shrouds attach and where, like on the front, on the firewall, and the fresh air duct, and the power to the coil, power to the alternator, grounds. There's a lot of grounds. Should be 4. Yeah, all those things, and the little 2-wire plug for the starter, or 2-prong plug for the starter. I'll disconnect all that. Pretty straightforward up here. I'll take the breather off because it gives me a little more clearance on the top side. And then it's underneath. I'll get started. All right, you can see I've got the wheels off. I've got the air grill off the back. Everything's disconnected up top. I've got one drum off. I gotta take the other one off still because you access the axle bolts through the drum. It's coming along. Everything's coming apart well because it's literally just put together in not long ago. I have to drop the exhaust. I have to drain the oil. The reason I'm going to drain the oil, you don't have to drain the oil, just change the transmission, but I'm also doing the crank seal and the bell housing because I don't think I greased the crank seal in the bell housing when I installed it. You have to put a grease in it because the initial start, if it starts dry, it'll tear that seal. And I must have just not done that. So anyways, it's leaking. I ordered from Clark's. I always order I'm just changing my bell housing kit. It's a multi-kit. It's under their multi-kit section. It comes with oil pan gasket, comes with the crank seal, comes with, if it's Power Glide, the Power Glide cable O-ring, all that good stuff. Exhaust, donuts. For some reason, it comes with the oil filter adapter gasket. I don't understand that because you don't have to remove the oil filter adapter to remove the engine. So I'm not really sure what that's about, but I end up with a bunch of them. Yeah, so now the next step is I've got to take it up a little higher. I got to drop the remaining accessories like the exhaust. You don't have to drop the exhaust, but in my situation with a 4-post, I have to just for clearance. I got to drop the exhaust. I got to drop the transverse leaf, drain the oil, and I'll show you what I do, what's my preference to do with the bell housing situation once I get there. It's just a little trick that I've learned from doing it a million times, and it seems to work for me, and maybe it'll work for you. Ow. Ow. Okay, draining oil. Oil looks pretty good, nice and ambery, but I don't think it's that old. I think I changed it. Well, I changed it last year. So the trick I was talking about, because of how I remove this powertrain and I have it on a lift table, it's hard to access the bottom of the engine. So what I do, so I want to remove this bell housing from the engine. So there's some bolts here that attach through the oil pan to the bell housing. So what I do is I remove these bolts. I think I go with like all the ones in the front here. I remove them, and then I drop out these two bolts that join the differential to the bell housing. So I take them out, and I take these out while I have access while it's on the lift. And then later on, when I'm removing this bell housing, I just take this bell housing off. I cut the gasket across here with the an X-Acto knife or a razor blade. That way there's no interference when I put the bell housing back on. And then when the engine's back in the car and on the lift later, I put a new pan gasket on. Comes in that kit that I was talking about. So I'm going to drain the oil. I'm going to drain the transmission fluid that seems to be leaking out of every orifice, which I don't really understand. Diff looks pretty good. I resealed all that. I've got to remove the heater ducts because I do run heat in this car because I run it late in the year. Transverse leaf spring. It's 2 bolts here and picks up on either end. And then these axles, you undo the U-joints right there, and the bolts, the nuts for them, for the axles are on the inside, and then you just slide this whole thing out of the way. It's pretty easy, really. I drop them with the trans cross member included, so I take that with it. You always want to make sure with the Power Glide, I think the manuals tells you that you want to make sure that it's in drive before you pull the cable out. It's allegedly easier to get the cable back into the other transmission. However, my other transmission that I've got, I'm going to end up dropping the pan anyways to change the gasket and just to clean out inside and make sure it's cool. But I'll do that like when it's in the car. And if that transmission by chance doesn't work, then I'll just do this all over again. And it only costs me time. I got the used transmission for not very much money, so it was known to be working in the car, so it's worth a shot before I go and spend, you know, I don't know, $1,000 or something on a transmission. So yeah, gotta disconnect the starter, disconnect the fuel lines, all that good stuff. Not a whole bunch left, and it'll be out. So disconnected the heater hoses. I pulled the Power Glide cable, which is right here. See the O-ring, you don't want to forget about that. I disconnected the throttle shaft right here. Disconnected the spring from the emergency brake right there. I got to pull the cotter pins for the trans cross member and get that ready. The big pain thing that I have left to do, it's not really that bad on early. I'm going to lower the car down a bit to do it, is I got to pull these axles and slide them back. So it's just the 4 bolts on the U-joints, or you can pull the whole thing out of the diff, but if you pull the whole thing out of the diff, this yoke, you risk wrecking that seal in the diff, and then you've got to change the seal if you do wreck it. So that's not cool. So I'm going to pop off the U-joint hardware, it's all new, and the 4 bolts that are in the brakes, pull the axles out. Then I think it's just the mounts, but I'll have another look up top just to make sure everything's cool. Pretty straightforward. I say that. The first time I did it, it took, on my 65 coupe that I used to have, it took, I don't know, a full day to do this. Now that I've done it a bunch of times and I have a good setup for it, it doesn't really take all that long. I used to try and time myself, but then I found that I was like cutting corners and cutting wires and, you know, just trying to hack to get it done. And there's no rush. It's an old car. It's fun. So, yeah. All right, so this is where we're at for right now. This is where kind of where the work begins. I only had one casualty, and I'm not too proud to show it. Usually I undo this rod from both ends, from the carb end and from the transmission end, and then remove it straight, and I just lay it on the top for when the engine drops out. I don't know what happened. Well, I do know what happened. I didn't do that. I disconnected both ends and left it there, and it caught on the control arm and left me with a pretzel. So I'm gonna have to go through my pile of parts. I think I've got one of these, but it'll be hard to see which one's the right one. Maybe the manual will have some measurements. Other than that, there's a couple local club events coming up that I could maybe get one, but I think I'll probably want it sooner than that. So I'll dig through my pile and see what I got. So that's that. Nicely powder coated shrouds. They still look good. This little bugger is the culprit for all this problem. So engine, bell housing, differential, transmission, right? So you see what I mean, why I had to remove those bottom bolts on the bell housing to be able to pull this off. Yeah, other than that, that's enough for today. I was fortunate and I was able to squeeze a few hours to do it. So now I'm going to clean up and go cut my grass. And then the next time you see me, I'll bring in the diff and trans. It's actually 64, it was a score because it's 64 diff and trans that I got used. And 64s are 64 only because they have the thing for the transverse leaf spring. So it's a score that I got that, but yeah, fun times. So I'll come back tomorrow, the next day, whatever. It'll be a couple minutes for you guys, and with the used diff and trans, and we'll start on that journey. All right, it's been a couple of days, you know, things get in the way. I've got quite the mess of transmission fluid here. I've got the replacement transmission and differential. I'm not replacing the differential, just the transmission. So I've hosed it off some with some brake clean. I'm going to do more of that so it looks more like this one that's already there. I was reading the book, reading the manual. I can't do as I originally planned. I can't just, well I can, but it's not as good, it's not the right way. I can't just take this off the end and ultimately get what I want to get at. So I need to take the starter off. I need to separate the diff and trans as a unit and then split them. And then put the new trans on. Not a big deal. I'm going to put it on this. I got this funny little thing here. I used to have one of these. This one's new. I used to have one of these before, and I used it all the time before I had my lift table. I used it with a engine hoist, and that seemed to work. So I'm going to do that here and see how it goes. I'll lift this up to the right elevation. For that, I'll unbolt this thing. I'll slide the diff and trans off. I can take the engine out of the way, which I still have work to do there. As I mentioned, the bell housing seal and stuff like that. And then I can dismount that trans from that diff, and then maybe do something like that with this one. And it's a lot of screwing around, but I'll figure it out. All right, I have quite the crime scene here. Transmission fluid gets everywhere. So does brake clean. The nice thing about brake clean, if you're not familiar with brake clean, I don't know how you'd be working on cars and not familiar with brake clean, but it evaporates. So you can spray it in, you know, obviously you don't want to spray it right in the transmission, but I sprayed it in here, in this edge, just to get any of the crap out of there. And it washes all the crap out, and then it all evaporates, and it's not going to be a problem. So I've got that cleaned up kind of enough. I've cleaned off this old gasket, which didn't take much because I only put this gasket on like a year or so ago because I had these apart. One thing I screwed up, I didn't get a new governor O-ring, the governor. So I'm going to use the governor that was with this transmission, even though it kind of looks crappy. It's solid, it's not rotten through. You want to check these things to make sure that they're not rotted right through, because they do get soft over time. But I'm going to use this one, I'm going to clean it up and use this one that was with the transmission because it was with the transmission. And I know this transmission doesn't work very well. I'm sure it's not the governor, but because I think I swapped that. But this one did work with that governor. So the one thing I did screw up, I didn't get an O-ring for it. That O-ring was replaced when I put this transmission in, or sometime in between when I was trying to make this transmission work properly. So I'm going to use its O-ring. It's probably going to leak. So I might as well go ahead and order one. But in the meantime, like, I can change that in the car. It's not a big deal. But I got to get that, take that O-ring. Same thing with the modulator. That's a new modulator, so I'm not going to throw that out, but Clark's modulators, they're good, but I've had some that are not wonderful, that don't work as intended. So if this one, I know this transmission worked. This is a replacement modulator. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to do kind of bare minimum, just clean it up a little bit more, swap the cross member. I'm going to keep that cross member because it's a 64 cross member and good to have. On that one, the external shaft came out with the trans. That happens. This one it didn't, so I'm using the one I didn't screw with it. I'm leaving it there. So really and I've cleaned this whole edge up. All I need to do now is put my new gasket in between and put the bolts back in, put the governator in, torque it. And then that part of it is kind of done, other than I want to replace this seal while I'm here, because I'm here. And then on to this, I've got to pull this bell housing off, which is just removal of this flex plate. And then there's, I don't know, half a dozen bolts that go around the outside. Pop the bell housing off, change the seal on the bell housing, change the gasket on the bell housing, cut the pan gasket, which I'll show you. So that way I can get the bell housing back on in this orientation, and then I'll change the pan gasket when it's in the air. So once I put the gasket in between there and mate those two, change that seal, change those seals, put the torque converter back on, like it's starting to go back together. And then it's just back in the car, which there's a couple little things I want to do but while it's out, but for the most part, I think I'm pretty good. I'm not getting too crazy here because there is a probability, it's a possibility. I'm hoping it's a possibility, not a probability. There's a possibility that this transmission has just been sitting around and it's no good. And then I'm going to have to get a rebuilt one anyway. Whatever. That's cool. If that happens, that's what happens. That's all I can do. It's nice. It's got a pipe plug in here, so when John took this out of his car, he and scrapped the car, he, you know, precautionary measures. Yeah, that's a 355 64 diff. That's a keeper. You got to keep that, hang on to it, because you just never know when something like that comes up. So this is how my sea can gets full of garbage, is because I end up having to keep stuff like this because I don't want to have to look for one later. This is a 327 64 diff. That's like, to me,
for a power glide early, this is like a holy grail kind of thing, because it's highway gear, and it's got the transverse leaf spring thing, which is 64 only. So I definitely want to keep this guy. Hopefully I don't throw it on the floor. So this is that O-ring that I was talking about that I was dumb and didn't order. Why I didn't think to order it, I don't know. Probably because I haven't done a power glide since I put this thing together. Alright, I'm going to get back to this. Put some gaskets in between here, bolt some things, do some things and things and things. And yeah, that's sealed. They've been mated. Old crappy diff, old crappy painted trans? No, hang on. Old crappy painted diff, old crappy trans. I changed that seal. I just used my little seal puller and popped out the old seal wherever it went, and it looked like a pretzel when it came out. One thing I wanted to show you is that, and I didn't do this the last time, and it was a mistake on my part. The torque converter, this torque converter lip here rides in that seal, right? So this rides on the outside of that shaft, and this rides on the seal. So it's worth giving that a scuff with a Scotch-Brite and a little wipe down with some brake clean, and get rid of any surface rust on there, because it's never going to seal if there's a bit of surface rust, which it didn't seal the last time. The other thing that I did was I got a light, thin layer, high temp grease that'll dissolve quickly after it warms up, but it just gives it so it's not initially a dry spin in that seal and melting that seal or ripping the seal or whatever. The instructions from Clark's recommends that you do that. I likely didn't do it the last time, so I think this is good to go. This guy in here feels okay. It's not perfect, but I don't have another one, so I might clean that up a little bit more. Important not to get crap in your oil, of course, your transmission fluid. But I just wanted to show you the importance of cleaning the outside of this seal, because that, or the outside of this torque converter shaft, because that collar is what rides on the inside of this shaft. So it's important, like I've got a little bit of grease on that seal, so like I said, it won't tear. And I've got a little bit of grease on the outside of that, and I've cleaned it. There's no surface rust, there's no mess, and there was some actually surface rust around the outside. And yeah, the Scotch-Brite took care of that. All right, so I'm going to pop that torque converter in here, and then I'm on to the bell housing stuff, which is, it's not bad, but it's just kind of a pain in the ass. It's all a pain in the ass. So I'll carry on, and I'll show you interesting points along the way. All right, so I've cleaned this all up, sprayed it all out with brake clean. This is a good opportunity to look at your cam gear and see if there's anything that's really weird about it, but I've looked at this lots of times when I put this engine together. So, and that's all fine. I didn't split the block on this engine because I just did top end rebuild and that's all it really needed. So this is what I was talking about. I cut the gasket off here because I want to be able to slide my bell housing on. See, here's my piece of gasket. I want to be able to slide my bell housing on with no interference. It's important to get all this all cleaned up. I put my new seal in the bell housing, but lots of grease on it this time. Same thing as as on the torque converter. You don't want this to spin, this crank gear to spin dry in that seal, or it'll just tear it up and it'll leak immediately, which is what happened to me the last time because, I don't know, I guess I wasn't paying attention and I didn't put it together. I didn't grease it when I put it together. So now I'm going to put the gasket on that, finish cleaning that up, put the gasket on that, mount that on. There is a torque for this. Please beware that in the back of your service manual, there's a torque table. And the way these bell housing bolts go, the 4 at the bottom, this one, that one, and that one are these, and they don't get a washer. And the 5, I think it's 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that go around the top do get a lock washer. If you put in lock washers all the way around, and I don't know about automatic, but on a manual car, it will hit the flywheel and will make a hell of a noise, and you will have to pull it back apart. I don't know why I know that, but anyways, 5 bolts around here get lock washers. Those 4 don't. That's the way it was from the factory, at least to my knowledge, and that's the way you got to put it together. So when you're installing this bell housing, you want to make sure that you are not going to catch that shroud when you're putting it on. So it's nice to kind of try and get it on that side a little bit first, but it's really hard because you got to keep this sort of centered on this crank thing. So I'm going to do that, and then that's the bell wrapped up, and then I'm starting to put stuff back together here, and maybe I'll mate this thing tonight, and that's probably going to be it for tonight, and because I worked all day. So I'd like it to be ready to put in, because then it was like an afternoon to take it out, like an evening to take it out, an evening to put it together, to split it, put it back together, and another afternoon or evening and I'll have it back in. So that's the plan. Let's see how that goes. All right, it's a new day. It's been a couple of days. Yesterday, I went to a Corvair Club event and visited a member's collection. Pretty nice stuff. And did a lot of driving. Anyways, tired, but I'm going to work on this and see if I can get this engine and powertrain back in the car. Transmission swapped, shrouds are back on, everything's done. I picked up, when I was out yesterday, I picked up a replacement linkage for that one that I bent up. I'm going to use it as a template to reshape mine back into the shape that it should be, and then I'll have an extra. What else do I got to do? I think it's pretty straightforward.
I think I'm pretty well ready to go. I want to get it back in the car anyways. I'd like to see if it works. So I'll plug away at it nice and slow, see how it goes. All right, I've been plugging away at this thing. I've got pretty much everything underneath done. I pulled the trans pan. It actually looks really good in there. It looks like it was stored with some fresh fluid in it. There's no crap in the bottom of the pan or anything like that. A friend of mine reminded me, and I wasn't thinking about this, that when you have either a new transmission cable, shift cable in these things, or if you have a transmission that's not matched to your existing cable, you need to adjust it. It's all covered in the manual. I forgot about it, so I had to pop the pan back down again. And then I didn't have the tool. It's a special tool with a specific measurement at the end. And I didn't have the tool, so I made the tool. It just goes in the transmission. And this it's more of an alignment thing than anything else. So I did that. That's all good. Everything else is pretty well good. The transverse leaf spring was a bit of a bear. So I'm procrastinating now. I have pretty much everything done on the bottom. The only thing I have is I've got 2 bolts that are too long for where they go. And I don't like them, so I'm going to change them. Don't like my fuel clamp on my fuel line, so I'm going to change it. I have to put the air grill back on. And then it's all on the top side. And the top side doesn't take very long. I did bump the distributor during this whole process, so it's going to be a little bit of not the easiest start because I got to reset the timing. What am I going to do if this doesn't work? So I've got an idea. What I think I'll do if this doesn't work, if this trans is no good, and that's a worst case scenario because, you know, this is a good used trans that was working and everything looks good. All appears well. If it doesn't work, there's a reason I'm putting this whole car together complete. My thought process is I was thinking about it and I thought, well, I could just jam enough together, start the car and make it all and find out if it works and then finish the assembly after. Not going to do that. I'll end up losing crap. So what I'm going to do is the car's going to be completely assembled as if it was going to drive out of here. If the trans works, that's cool. It will drive out of here. If the trans doesn't work, well, then it's completely assembled. I'll just put the lift up. It'll stay on the shelf for a little bit. And I'll send the other trans to the Corvair ranch and get it rebuilt. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. But at least the car will be all together and complete. And I won't have bits and pieces laying around while I'm waiting for a rebuild. And it'll be a month or whatever. Who knows? I've got other stuff I'm working on and stuff everywhere. So I'm procrastinating. I'm going to go and change this fuel clamp, change the 2 bolts that I don't like, put the air grill on, lower the car down. Got to install that fuel rod thing, lever that goes to the bell crank, and do all the topside stuff. Okay, moment of truth. Everything's hooked up. There's fluid in it. There's a little hole in the dipstick tube that's kind of annoying me that it must be a vent hole or something. Anyway, so it's dripping, and I noticed that where my dipstick tube connects to the trans has a drip. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do about that just yet, but let's see if this thing works first. It should fire right up because I primed it. It'll probably tap a bunch because I just changed the oil and it probably doesn't have oil pressure yet. But I'm going to set you up here to watch this rotor. This is not a rotor, this drum. And with any luck, it'll turn one way
and when I rev it, it'll turn. And then if I put it in neutral and put the brakes on, it'll stop. And then if I put it in reverse, it should go the other way. I don't know if I'm optimistic or not. Let's see. If this works, then the next thing is to clean up, put wheels on it, and take it for a drive. Okay, my camera's all blurry because I have oil on it, because I have oil on everything. Why wouldn't I? It seems to work, at least to go forward and backwards. I don't know what it's like to drive yet, obviously. I guess I've got a giant mess here to clean up. I guess I'll move this mess to the side, put wheels on it, and take it for a drive. Guess that's all that's left. I can't avoid it any longer. All right, I will do that, and I will reconvene with you when the car is sort of on the ground. So far, so good. Let's see if this old girl will work. I got some adjustments to do. Adjust the timing because I bumped the distributor. Carbs still need to be set. But overall, like, it's going into gear, so that's more than it did when I put it on the lift. Let's take it for a drive, see if it shifts, and then see how all that stuff goes. Well, it starts, that's a good sign. Goes in reverse, fine. Nice matter-of-fact shift into reverse, which is a lot better than what we had before. What we had before was kind of sloppy. Wipers work. What we had before was, it was just rev, and it would chatter, and it would do all kinds of funny things. So I'm hoping it doesn't chatter, because I don't know what to do if it chatters, because that means it's not the transmission. So it goes neutral drive, no problem. So far, so good. Let's see. Well, it's moving. 20, 30, 35, 40. Should have shifted by now. Oh, 40. It shifted at 40. Huh. It did shift. I can adjust that. Well, that's not so bad. I can adjust that. There's a little window up here for you. We got the heat on, or what's going on? Oh, it's just the wipers. Okay. Now, downshift. There it goes. So far, it's doing all of the things. I have to let out of it for it to shift, so I think that's the shift cable adjustment.
that shift lever that I bent and reused. I think that's that. But it downshifts, upshifts. So it's supposed to have two different settings. If you just roll into it, it'll shift at one setting. There's a bunch of sheep right there. Look at all these sheep. Can you see the sheep? Alright, enough of the sheep. And there's Milkshake, the alpaca, or llama. Milkshake the llama. Alright, so if I just accelerate and roll into it, what does it do? Should shift by now. 40, 45. So it shifts nice and firm though. I just got to adjust that take up. I wonder which way I got to go with that. Alright, let's stop and see if it goes backwards. Downshift's nice. It shifts firm. Like, not firm, too firm, but nice. Oh, it's revving. We go backwards. It definitely goes backwards. Timing's too far advanced. Right at 45 it shifts, so I think that's not set right, so I gotta adjust that cable, or that linkage. That's cool, that's not bad. It wouldn't even move before, like it was just, it would shake the wheel right out of your hand. It goes, it was crazy. This car's such a great driving car. Shifted. Bang. I better slow down here or I'm going to end up in the rhubarb. And right at 15 it's downshifting. So it's really close to being good. Like close to being right. The trans is good for sure. I just need to adjust this business here. This cable. Hey neighbor. Shifts right at 45 every time. So I either have to tighten or loosen that linkage. That's not a big deal. Awesome. This is good news. See, it should shift. There's two shift speeds. One if you've got throttle pressure, and one if you're just babying it. If I'm just babying it, it should shift at like 25, I think the manual says. And then if you're into the throttle, then it should hold it longer. Oh, I didn't check to see if it kicks down. Should check that. Not right here though. Lots of jam this little, there it goes, it shifted at 35 that time. That was weird. It's coming around. It's coming around. I think it's going to be fun. Yeah, downshifts. Perfect.
So what I want to do is get it in second. Now I'm out on the main road. And then kick it down and see if it kicks down to first. So 40, 45, shifts it into second. I'm doing 50. Now if I slow down a little bit, so I don't die, and then kick it down. Kick down. It's doing all the things. It's doing all the things. This is, I don't know how to describe how good this is. Alright, so I adjusted the shift points on that throttle rod, on the TV rod, whatever that TV stands for, television rod. I'm going up a hill right now. It's working. So I had it where it just slipped through the hole, and like I think I lengthened it 1 turn. The manual says have it where it just slips through the hole and lengthened it 5 turns. So I've done that now, and now it shifts at low speed 30 miles an hour and high speed 40, like high throttle pressure. That's perfect. I can't ask for any better than that. I still got to balance the carbs. I just noticed when I pulled over that I have a tail light out, which is weird because they're LED, so it must just be that it's not plugged in or ground or something. It needs a balance. It needs a good run, but yeah, this is what I needed to do. I'm glad I gambled on the used transmission. I usually don't do that sort of stuff because you just never know. But these transmissions, they're pretty robust. So let's watch it shift here. So I'll tell you when it shifts in case you can't hear it. Dead stop. So I'll just roll onto it. About 32 miles an hour. That's probably still a little high, but that's pretty good. So then if I stop again, and I'll accelerate a little more abruptly. It's a Corvair, remember? It's 44 it shifted, right around 40, between 40 and 45, not quite at 45. It's perfect. What do I want? And then if I kick it down, it kicks down. It's doing all of the transmission things that these things do. Now, I'm not asking a lot of this. It only has 2 gears. I'm only asking for it to shift twice. But this is pretty good. Pretty happy about this. So I've had this car, I think, a couple of years now. Actually, more than that. Jeez, I've had it like 5 years, I think, because I built my shop in 2019. And I had it then, but it was just a shell, right? It had stuff in it, but it was just a shell. Got it on the road 2 years ago. Drove it around, limped it around with that crappy transmission for a really long time. Suspension's all new, everything's new. Like it's a good car. It just needs that last 10%. And now that it's shifting properly, running okay, I can take it the rest of the way. I've got the motivation to do it. I'm not procrastinating now. I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to that stuff. If there's some sort of problem, I don't really want to deal with it. So I guess I'll park it back on the lift and do kind of a nut and bolt on it before it goes real far. See what's going on with my tail lights. Don't really want to drive too far with only one tail light. But this is a win. It's a big win. There we go, 30. So that was like mid-throttle, shifted at 35. Perfect. I got to do that back seat thing that I've been procrastinating on, once again, because it hasn't worked right, so I just haven't wanted to work on it. I've been busy working on other things. I want to do a wipe-on clear coat on this car. So if you've got any experience with that, please comment. Especially if you're in Canada, where to get it. It seems I gotta ship it from the States, and it's gotta be, like I can get the vice grip one, I can get the sweet patina one, I can get the something sauce, jam sauce thing that I think is really, vice grip is really the same thing. I don't know. So I'm gonna try something, but would love to hear your recommendations. I've seen all the videos, so just let me know what you think on the wipe-on clear coat. This paint's not good. So anyways, that's a win. I'm gonna drive this thing a little bit and park it, and then it's good motivation. All right. Success. My camera's still greasy. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'd like to thank, I sound like I'm at the Academy Awards or something. I'd like to thank my friend John Oostijk, who sold me this transmission for a very reasonable amount, and it works good. My buddy Dave Binney for his tech support. My friends Kyle Pernokes, Jonathan McCreary for pushing me and asking me how this is going all the time. And my wife for putting up with me. So this is good. This was a low buck fix. Oh, and Sharon that I worked on her 63 because that got me inspired to get back at my 64, and she also donated me some parts, so that's good. Yeah, this was a low buck fix. It was supposed to be a low buck car. It's not a low buck car at this point. Like it's, I've got some money in it, but that's okay. I really like an early coupe. So yeah, let me know what you want to do about the patina thing. I'm gonna do something. So just let me know if you have any experience with that sort of stuff. I did polish it up one time before with just like a buffer and some compound. Didn't really work all that great because the paint's it's just not good. It's not original paint. Thanks for watching. I still have little things to sort out. I got one taillight not working. I got to balance my carbs. Got to clean it. It's a mess. But that's it for now. Right now, I got to clean up all this mess. And yeah. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.